Yeah. So oh.
I'm afraid she's mad. We'll put her inside. Come on, Amy.
Nice dog.
She thinks everybody's got food in the pocket.
I'm not surprised.
It's a female dog, so you can't expect sanity. Not that I'm prejudiced, you understand.
No, of course not.
But I've been married 63 years, so...
Well, you've done well. I'm on 2.
Oh. Well, it's too late to swap now.
No.
I'm 86 and Joe's 91.
Wow, you're doing really well.
So we're coping.
Yeah.
We've both promised to live until we get an intelligent government.
Well,
We're all right for a bit, aren't we?
yeah, I think you'll be here a long time.
It really do.
Right, so we've got 2006 VFR800. A problem that I've never seen before. So the battery's disconnected, and when you reconnect it, the bike starts up as if the key's in the on position. I'll just see if it'll start as well. Yeah. So, bit of an odd one that. So, the owner has replaced the starter relay, I think. So, I'm going to start there. I don't know if that was replaced and then the fault came up. I've only sort of talked to him on email, so it's hard to get a grasp of what's happened, because the last time I saw this bike I serviced it, and I think I might have put tyres on, I can't remember, but obviously this problem may have made him take all the fairing off to try and find this fault. I don't know. So the good news is the fault is still there. I've just got to figure out what is happening basically. So what I'm tempted to do is just take the key out, put that on and see if it starts, and then okay, so the reason I did that was because it's got Honda's immobiliser system, so with no key there it won't start. So anyway, I'm going to set up my test leads and just poke in a few areas where and try and figure out where to start really, because I think it's either going to be the starter relay. This gets its power, you know, the bike's ignition system, and you know, the key gets its power from there. So that's probably all working fine. I've got a funny feeling it's going to be something to do with the ignition, so it's not turning off. So we'll have a quick look at the wiring diagram and then try and find the wiring for it, because I know it won't be easy to find. But so where are we? So this is the ignition wiring here. Actually, it comes down and it's down here, so that might not be too bad to figure out. We can just disconnect that plug and make sure that the circuits are opening and closing, so it might not be too hard to diagnose this one. So I just pulled up a basic wiring diagram for it. We've got 4 wires going into the ignition unit. In the on position, let's see. So these 3 are connected, and these 2 are connected. So when it's in the off position, all of these wires, there should be no continuity between them. Okay, so I've got my meter on continuity check. basically you're just going to have to take my word for it, but there's no continuity on any of these 4 wires, so the ignition switch is doing its job basically. So I've got to follow these wires and wherever they end up. I need two hands. Plug this back to the wiring diagram. So in the on position, I think all the wires are connected, so let's find where the source of these wires comes from first. Fuse. So we could just check that, because obviously it's coming from here to here. Check the fuses and see if we get power through all of them. Okay, so keys on the off position. I've hooked the battery up permanently. This is the fuse box, I finally found it. So we have got voltage, but I wouldn't say it's a true reading. It's not battery voltage. Battery voltage is obviously a little bit higher. So we've got this one, number 4. So let's just disconnect this ignition switch just to make sure it's nothing to do with that. So the bike's still live. Let's just check the numbers again. 10-3, 10-3, 10-3, and number 4 basically 0. Number 5 is 12, but that one might be permanently 12. And then the final one, dead. So what are they? So this one had full power, so the horn and turn signals. And these two, the first two, sorry, didn't quite have power. So there's voltage coming from somewhere. We'll pull up the wiring diagram again. So E gets its power so there's a potential that power's coming through from this one, it's from E and F, but it doesn't explain why the dash is live. So I think I'm gonna have to look at this starter, because the ignition switch feeds the fuse box and it's not 100% there, so it's got to be coming from somewhere else. So I've got to sort of guess what it could be. For instance, if I pull this starter relay out, what happens? Because I think it'll kill the whole bike. So that's off, but everything's still live. Interesting. So it's getting its power from somewhere. It's not the ignition switch, that's disconnected. Oh, of course, the main fuse. Will that shut it down? Get my fuse out. Right, so the main fuse is out and everything's still there. It won't start because the main fuse has got its fuse out. And I've disconnected. This is basically the start button. So that isn't it. Oh, there's another fuse there. I didn't realise they had another fuse. So that may be the bike's main power. So we've got to find where. Let me think. Let's pull. What I was thinking about doing was just pull the fuses out one by one, and then see if one. Okay, so I've pulled most of the fuses. We've got a dash that works. We've got a tail light and a brake light. So they're getting power from somewhere. The power goes into fuse number 3 and comes out. Just get this off so I can have a quick look at it. So in the fuse block there's a blue and brown, and it goes red and black. So you've got red and black, red and black, red and black. Fuse number 3. I wish I had this, I mean, it must be, because it's number 4, so it's got to be D. So D goes out blue and brown. That goes straight to the ignition switch. And we've got, just get my meter set up again. So what I'm reading, actually I need to set that to that. So on there we've got 11.2 volts. We've got that fuse is the brown with the blue wire. The brown with the blue wire let me just double check this. So that's on fuse E, the brown with the blue wire. The blue with the orange wire is the one we want, I think. Oh, so there's the blue with the orange wire. So that one goes to the ignition switch. We can ignore that one now. So the next one I want to look for is going to be the one that's got power, which is that one. So it's brown and blue. Brown and blue. So it's that one. So this one's got power. Goes to your flasher. It goes to the speed sensor, and it goes to, okay, so it branches off a few ways. Side light. So this feeds quite a lot of things. Instrument cluster, starter switch, which is the button on the handlebars, goes to the brake lights, which we know work. Instrument cluster and starter switch. So it's got to be one of these connectors that's backfeeding power to the whole circuit. So we've got to sort of, I'm going to start with this speed sensor, wherever that is, which I think it'll be on the gearbox, won't it? I'm sure. If I remember right, it's down here. This is it. This has got the same brown with the blue wire there on this pin. So I'll just measure that. Good. Yeah, so we've got the same voltage down here. So the whole circuit is getting powered from some source. So I mean, it's obviously going to be a broken wire somewhere in the loom. Question is, where would it be? Because the customer has just told me that he broke down and it was a faulty stator, so he's replaced the stator, and since then this has been a problem. So the problem may have been caused by the stator going out. So basically something two wires have shorted out. So you've got a constant power source feeding this brown and blue wire, and it's possible that it's a faulty sensor. So like if one of these sensors had some damage to it, it could be putting the power back through that circuit. What else was there? The passing switch, but you know, that's going to be to a bulb. We've got instrument cluster. It could be a faulty instrument cluster. Let's see if we unplug the cluster and see if the back light goes out. Oh, this is tight. Right. So that is off. Light's still on. So it's nothing to do with the cluster, which is a good thing. Expensive part. So, yeah, we've got a bit of a mission here, really, because I've got to find where that power's coming from. Because it goes from there, it goes up to there, and it goes down to the gear, speedo sensor, backlights. Could be somewhere in the backlights. Let's have a look at that as well. Just check for anything back here. So there's another. So I can't see anything there. Goes down to this area. Yes, I might be running out of time on this job, unfortunately. So I've got another service to do. But I think we're going to have another stab at this. I think it's going to be a complete wire and loom strip to find this problem, because it's getting power from somewhere on that circuit, and that would, it could also be caught. I mean, the other question is, why is it making everything else live? It's not even, yeah, there could be more elements here. So yeah, I'm a bit disappointed I can't find this problem, because it should be pretty straightforward. It's one circuit that's feeding the cluster, but I'd like to know why. Well, it explains why the bike will turn on, and it could be others. It could be others that are sort of getting power once this one's live. I might try that actually. Just put a fuse in that circuit and see if other things come on. Chuck this back in here, which I don't think it will though. I feel like we have got power to other areas. Interesting. How is it doing that then? Of course, I know why it's starting the bike, because this wire here, this side of the fuse box is the power from the ignition switch. When we put a fuse in here, we're basically powering all the other circuits. So that explains why the bike will start up. So I think I'm going to have to leave it here, because I've got to rush off and do another service. So I think what I'm going to suggest to the customer is to there's two options. He could strip it down further so that we can get access to the wiring loom, and it's basically finding where that brown and blue wire is shorted out in the bike. But I think we've narrowed it down enough to sort of say where to start anyway. So this probably wasn't much help to anyone, but thanks for watching. Interesting. It's quite an interesting fault anyway. So right, I'm back. You won't believe this. This wire was connected to the battery when I turned up, and keys off. Bike comes to life when this wire is touched. So I don't know what this device or whatever this accessory does, but it's obviously wired up wrong or something. So the positive, that explains it. So the positive side of this accessory is being hardwired into the bike's wiring. So it's getting power from here, and then obviously feeding that circuit from the positive. The positive is going into this, you know what I mean? So this would normally be supplying power to this accessory, but because he's put it on the positive, it's back feeding the bike. Oh my gosh, that could have been a lot of work for nothing if I didn't just check that. So obviously all the fuses are out, so everything's working as it should now. So all I need to do is refit all the fuses, and this job, I can't believe it. It could have been horrendous trying to figure that out, but I'm assuming he's just put the battery on in unfortunately whoever put this accessory on. Anyway, it doesn't matter, that should have been on the ground, and it would, you know, it's obviously a heated grip or something. So stick all these fuses back in a moment and I'll show you it's running. Okay, everything's wired up. Interesting. That sort of thing you don't see very often, so it would help if you put the ignition switch back in, Mike. Now, he didn't fit a new rectifier, so I'm going to check that for him as well. I'm just going to reconnect the ignition switch back in. Yeah, right. Now it should work. Lovely. Right, so we'll just do a quick check of the battery charging system. Yeah, so we are charging. Yeah, that looks good to me. Everything's working. Obviously there's no headlight, but excellent. Right, job done. So that has to go on the ground, and then the accessory, whatever it's connected to, should spring to life. It might be that USB thing actually, that's the right wire, isn't it? Anyway, he's got some other wires down here which he needs to connect, so that must be the heated grips, I guess. So I think that is, it's got a light or anything, so anyway, it's fixed. Can't believe it. Right, thanks for watching, guys. That's the end of the video. Hello guys, just a quick add-on to the end of this video. I'm just going to explain what was going on in that video, because it probably wasn't very obvious until near the end how it all came about and how it all worked. So as mentioned, this accessory had been wired up to the wrong battery terminal, so this wire here should have been on the ground, but it was wired up to the positive, and this would have normally blown the fuse or something. There should have been some protection in this device, whatever it was. Instead it went through the device and ended up into the wiring loom and became a live circuit. So this wire here in the loom, the blue and brown, is supposed to be a switched live. So you can see when it goes into the fuse box, it gets its switched power from the ignition switch, which feeds most of the fuses, I think, in the fuse box. So it comes out and then does all its necessary jobs on that circuit. Because the key was off, it was getting power through this accessory, feeding the bike, because when it came to the fuse, it jumped across the fuse onto the ignition side, because all these wires are joined up they fed each corresponding circuit with power. That's why the bike started up without needing a key. So on this particular accessory there was actually a 5 amp fuse. It was actually on this side of the wiring, just I should have put it on this side, but there was a 5 amp fuse in line with this accessory. So I still don't quite understand how the bike was able to take the 5 amp fused power, feed it through, and then feed all these circuits at the same time. I mean, when I looked at this fuse on the day, it did look like it had a lot of heat through it. The metal part of it was all distorted, but still, for something like that to happen and not blow the fuse, it's very, very odd. I mean, I think in most circumstances you'd put this on the positive terminal, that fuse would go, or something would happen, you know, it wouldn't just let the power through like that. And I think it was the USB, so I think that box was basically, yeah, it was just a short circuit in that box, so it probably was burnt to a crisp inside. But hopefully this explains why the bike did what it did. Thanks for watching, guys.